All right. So far we have worked on the UI part. So our UI is ready. Mobile app UI is ready. Now we are good to work on our API side. All right. For that, first thing I'm going to do in this solution, I'm going to create a new project. Add new project. This is going to be ASP.NET Core Web API. Next, and let's name it social media maui.api. Next, and we are going to use the same .NET 9 because this is what we have used for the UI also. So we'll go with .NET now, .NET 9 only. Authentication type none. We'll roll out our own password hashing and JWT authentication. All right. Configure for HTTPS. Yes. Enable Open API support. Yes. So we'll go with all the defaults. We just select the .NET 9 and we are here. All right. Now our API project is ready. I mean created. Now first thing we'll add our NuGet packages for API. We are going to use Entity Framework Core. So let's install Entity Framework Core package. Manage NuGet packages. Here we'll say Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. This is one project which we are going to use. Install, apply, accept. And after this, we are going to install Entity Framework Core.Tools as well. For our migrations, we are using code first approach. So for code first migrations, we need Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.Tools. So this gives us all these commands. So we are going to use these migrations. So install it, apply, accept, done. Alright, so we have installed these packages. If we double click on this API project in this CS Pros, we will see that we have Entity Framework Core.SQL Server and Tools package installed. Now let's start working on our entities. That is going to be the first piece. So in this API, I'm going to create a folder, data. Inside this data, I'm going to create one more folder for our entities. Inside this, we are going to create our entities. First thing, we need a user. Okay, that is the main initial thing. So we'll say user.cs. Now, maybe before this, not before this, let's run the app and we'll see what all we will need. Okay, so let it run. For user, we know first thing we are going to have one ID. So for this, I'm going to use GUID GUIDs for keys for all the entities. So this is going to be our ID, and I like data annotations. I'm going to use data annotations. This is going to be key. After this, we are going to have a name of the user, string name. Here we can have max length of, I don't know, 30. Then email. This is going to be max length of maybe 150. And these are required. I'm using default annotation. If some property is not required, I'm going to use string question mark. That means that nullable collection, nullable reference type. After email, we are going to have password. So we are not going to store plain password. We are going to store the hash of a password. Let's call it hashed password or password hash. Okay. Here also we can have some max length 50 or 300 characters. After this, we are going to have photo, user avatar. So for this, I am going to have two properties. First thing, that user photo, that is going to be optional. So the two properties I'm going to have, one, I will have, let's say, photo path. So this is going to be a physical path. So here I'll say comment, I'll add a comment here. I'll say physical path of the image. And this I am storing so that I can, or means so that we can move or delete these files if we want to. Move or delete the image from the physical location. That's why I'm having this as photo path. Now this will be the actual physical path. So this cannot be displayed in the MAUI mobile app side. So for mobile app side, this should be some URL. For this, we are going to have one more property here. This is also going to be nullable. Here we'll say photo URL. So that it can be consumed by other, in our case, mobile app. Okay. So for post also, for the actual post, when user will make post, and there also we will have photo upload option. For that also we are going to have these two properties, one physical path and one is URL. All right. So our user is ready. Now we have this thing, and on my mobile device I have again, again, navigate. So here, now let's see what all things we need for a post. Okay. So this is going to be a post. Now there could be multiple ways to design the database for this, but I will use a very simple approach, very simple way. So we are going to have a public class post. First thing, we need ID. So for this also I'm going to have GUID. This is going to be a key. After this, we are going to have the user ID. Who is the user who is posting this? The user ID, and this user ID would belong to this user entity. So we need to make the relationship between these two. So this user ID, I'm going to have public user, the navigation property I'm creating this. So virtual user, now this belongs to this one. After user ID, we will have image or text content, these two things. Okay. Now because both of these are optional, we can have a post without text and we can have a post without image. One is required. So that one is required, that validation will have in our business logic, but for database side, both of these two should be optional. So here we'll have public string content. Okay, this is going to be this text content. We can have some max length if you want to, but for me, I'm okay with whatever length we have. And after this, we are going to have two properties for photo path and photo URL. All right, both of these are also going to be nullable. Now our text part is ready. After that, we'll have the date time when this post was made. We'll have date time posted on, right? After that, we can have the modified on also if we want to track something. Modified on. And then if you remember, we have the delete functionality. So we will not delete the post entirely from the database. Instead, we'll use soft delete functionality. So for that, we are simply going to have one more field which will be is deleted. So with this, our post entity is also ready. All right. Now, after this thing, we have this like functionality. Okay. Or maybe before like, let's see for comments. We'll have one entity for comments. We'll say public class comment. Okay. Now, first thing, this comment is also going to have one ID. For this also, I'm going to use GUID comment ID. Then this comment will belong to some post. So we are going to have post ID here. Public GUID post ID. Now we'll have our navigation property setup. So post, and we'll make it virtual for easy loading. Right. And after that, we are going to have the main text content. We'll say public string and meant, so we can name it content. Right. We can have some max length if we want to, but I'm okay with the entire whatever max length it can have. Then some user would comment, right? So there should be some user details. The comments, we have this user information. So this comment will be created by some user. We need that user. For that, we'll simply say same thing, wait user ID, and we'll add the navigation property as well. So user, and we'll make it virtual. Now after this, we'll have one field for this date time when this comment was added. So we'll say date time added on. Now our comment is also ready. Okay. Now one post can have multiple comments. So let's set up other side of the things if we want to access something from here, but from here we have set up one side of the thing, so we should be okay. We will not access comments from this post. We are okay. All right. After comment, now we have this like functionality. Now for like, we will have many to many relationship. Okay. So for this like, and same would go with this saving functionality, that bookmark functionality. So for that also, we are going to have many to many relationship. So I am going to have a separate entities for this. First, let's say public class, let's say likes, or we can name it post likes, or just likes. Okay. So here we will have post ID, and we'll have our navigation property here, post with virtual. Then some user would like some post. Other thing would be this user, public with user ID and user. Okay. Now for this, we are going to set key in the using the Fluent API in DB context on model builder. We have a way, because for this likes, for my primary key, I'm going to have a combination of post ID and user ID. Okay. So there is one way using key, then we set the column, then we set the order of this. So for this particular thing, there is composite key, primary keys. So if we have a collection of primary keys, then I avoid this. Then I go to the Fluent API builder. All right. Same thing we'll have. Now, how we will approach this? So whenever some person, when some user likes a post, we will add one entry to this table. And if that user unlikes that post, we will simply remove that entry from here. That is how we are going to do it. Same thing we'll do for bookmarks. After likes, we'll say bookmark. Okay. And with this, I guess we have done everything now, right? Just notification is remaining. Let's do notification as well. We'll have one more table, public class notification. First, we have ID, same grade, ID. This will be key. After this, we'll say for which user this notification was generated to. So this time, for notifications, I should receive notifications only for my posts, right? If someone has liked my post, if someone has shared, or sorry, bookmarked my post, if someone has added comment on my post, then I'm going to get notification. That means we'll say for user ID. So this notification was generated for which user ID? That we are going to have here, where we'll have navigation property setup. So we'll say public user virtual. Now this is not going to work the way these entity framework conventions work. It is going to have, so for example here, if we have this navigation property user, it will automatically point to search for user ID. It will bind these two together. It will understand, okay, this is the relationship. But if the names are different, now here I have user and here I have for user ID. So we have two options. One is this user, we need to make it for user. Now it will know that this is for user. It can simply say for user ID, this is for this one. And if somehow, for whatever reason, if you can't have this thing same, in that case, we can explicitly tell that this navigation property is going to use foreign key for this one. Okay, we can set foreign key and we can say name of for user ID. So we can add this using this thing. Okay, so if do let me in the comment if you guys want a dedicated video for entity framework EF core. I can plan a video for this as well. Okay, so this is for user. After that, we'll have when this notification was generated. Let's say when. Okay, this also should be required, which is actually default, but it then we can have a nullable post ID as well. So if we are having this thing, if I click on this thing, this person liked your post. If I click on it, it should open that exact post. Okay, so we can have this logic as well. So we'll say public and wait and post ID. Now there might these notifications will always be here. So if some post got deleted, then this should not be here, or for whatever reason, if that post does not exist, or maybe we will have some other kind of notification which does not belong to some post or for anything, for any reason, we can make it nullable so that this is not required. If we have this post ID, then on top of this we will simply open that specific post in this pop-up. Okay, if that's not the case, we'll simply skip it. Cool. So we'll set up the navigation property. So public post. Now because the ID is nullable, we'll make this post as nullable as well. And we'll have this virtual. Save it. Okay. After this, we are going to have this text notification. We'll say public string text. And this is going to be a required, which is default actually without, because we have not added question mark. Here we'll set max length as something like 200. And with this are all the entities are ready. Okay, now I have all of these in a single file. I'm going to move these to their respective separate files. I actually like this approach. I'll add everything in single file, then I'll simply go here, I'll press control dot control period. It will give me these options. Here we are going to have side from this side. We are going to have option to move type to post.cs. It will going to move it to a separate file. This is the post.cs now. See, we have this. I'm going to do this for all these. Comment, then likes, after that bookmarks, notification, and we are good. We have created all our entities. Now when our entities are ready, now it's time to create a ef core db context. Okay, so we can name it whatever we want. I'll name it data context. Okay, and to make it as ef core context, we need to derive from db context class. Okay, for this we can generate constructor of this one, this data context options. Now to make it more performant, we can simply have the this generic type of db context options, and we'll pass this data context. Now our data context is here. Now we need to access all these types, all these entities. So we'll create db set properties here. db set bookmarks. We are going to call these bookmarks only. Then let me make copy of these. Then we'll see one by one. Then we have this comment. So we'll say comment, and we'll say comments. Next is likes. Likes. Then we have notifications. So notification, the property name would be notifications. Then we have posts. Then we have user and users. Remove it. 1 2 3 4 5 6. We have 6 entities. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Yes, we have 6 entities. Now our data context is here. Now we just need to set the, if you remember, I said for likes and likes and bookmarks, I have not set the primary keys. So we need to set those primary keys. So for these, we are going to override a method, override on model creating. Okay. Inside this, we are going to define those things on this model builder. We'll say model builder dot entity bookmarks. And here we'll say dot has key. And what is going to be key? We'll simply have an anonymous object. We'll say b dot post id, comma b dot user id. Same thing we'll do for likes. Alright. Now for these entities, we have the other parts of these things. When we say other parts, that means the other ends of this navigation. There are two entities involved. If one gets deleted, what should happen with the second one? We need to tell it how should it handle that case. For those things, we'll say model builder dot entity. Again, let's say bookmarks. Here we know that one bookmark has one, what one? It has one post and one user. So we'll handle user case because user is the required one for all. So b dot user, and then user can have many bookmarks. We'll say with many. Now Here we need to define what should happen on delete. Okay? When the user gets deleted, what should happen with bookmark? So here we have different things. So delete behavior, no action, client, no action, set null, restrict, client set null. So restrict is same, it sets to null, and same set null, and these two are same. So we'll use restrict, save it, and now we are good. So same thing we'll do with likes. But now if you see with this entity bookmarks, we are repeating this. Here we have one thing, then again we are going to do this thing. So if we want to have multiple things set up on single entity, there is one shorthand as well. Shorthand is actually what we can do with this model builder dot entity. It has this also build action. Okay, this is actually an action. So we can simply provide this thing entity, and inside this thing we can set both of these things. Here we'll say e dot has key, and then the same thing. And then again here also we are going to have the same thing with this e dot has one with many, everything, all these things. Save it and we are good. Now we can simply get rid of these two things like this. Now our bookmarks entity is ready. Same thing we'll do with likes. We can simply duplicate this. Instead of bookmarks, we'll say like. Right? So we are good with these two things. Cool. All right. Now after this, we will generate our database. Okay, we are not going to seed anything, everything will be empty by default. We just need to seed our database, not seed, we will need to generate our migrations. So for this, what we'll do, we'll go to the package manager console. Here we will select the API project as the default project and the startup project as API project. From here, or you can simply right click from here and set as startup project. Because when we run the migration, it will see what is the startup project. It will try to run it from that only. This should be a startup project, because here is our data context. Here are all our entities. We have added entity framework core NuGet package to this project. Everything should be inside this project. So default project is also going to set this API. Now we'll set our migration. So add migration, initial migration. This name is up to you. After add hyphen migration, we'll use migration name. So it could be anything. Now after this, by default, it is going to create a folder on root. And then it will add those migration classes on root. But we are having everything related to database inside our data folder. So we want our migrations to be inside this data only. In this data folder, we'll create a folder migrations, and then we'll have all our migrations inside that migrations folder. So with this command, we can provide the output path hyphen o, that is for output. Here we'll say data hyphen migrations. It will check for data folder, we have that, and it will search for migrations folder, we don't have that folder, so it will create that folder, and after that it is going to put all the migrations inside this. So we'll press enter. It will take some time. And build failed, something happened. Let's see if we try to build the API project, would it build? Yes, it is building. Let's clean everything up, clean the solution. We have API project set, we have API. If we'll try to rebuild the API project, it's fine. Go back to package manager console again. We have API, yes. Add migration. Let's see this time. It didn't show any error. It just said build failed. Let's see if it works this time. And again, build failed without any error. Let's try to find out if we could find something. I don't know what should I look for. Let me try to see what is happening here. Here, package manager is not showing any error. Okay, let me close the Visual Studio and open it again. I am not sure what is happening, why it is failing. There is no error. We are able to build the API project. That is startup project and everything is fine actually. Let's try one more time. Add migration. Yes, spelling is also fine. And build failed. Let me close the Visual Studio and open it again. I just opened it. Let's try this time. Add migration initial output data slash migrations default project API, and that is all. Hi, build started. It is taking time. That means something is not right. What is that thing? Do let me know in the comment if you guys know what is happening here. Why it is not building from this package manager console, but it is building from here. Rebuild. It builds properly. Rebuild all once succeeded. Let's try the mobile app as well. Mobile app built successfully, ran successfully. Let's do this. I have selected this API project and let's try to run it. We'll see if there is any error which direct build or rebuild is not able to figure out. It ran without any problem, right? Let's try this one more time. I need to debug it. I am out of ideas. What is happening here? I have no idea. Maybe it is related to Visual Studio or something else is happening. Okay, I'll try to debug. Alright, so that error, I could not find anything. I tried this verbose logs. It simply says using project and then using startup project and just build failed. Then I tried to read about this. Then someone said that try closing and opening Visual Studio and rebuild the solution. When I'm rebuilding the solution from here, this social media MAUI, the mobile app is failing. Let's wait for this build to finish. So there is something wrong when we build the solution. Individual project level building is fine. The solution build is failing. Maybe that is the culprit. So we'll see and try to fix that. So it is failing for this. It says assembly community toolkit.maui without identity. Community toolkit.maui version this uses Microsoft.iOS version 18.1, which has a higher version than referenced assembly Microsoft.iOS with identity, whatever it is. So this is failing for this thing. So I don't know what is happening here. Maybe the package we have used, if you remember when we were building it, when we were trying to install Microsoft that community toolkit.maui, then it gave us some issues, right? So for that we had to use this specific Maui version. So maybe let's try to uh, downgrade it to the previous version. Instead of 10, we'll use version 9 of this community toolkit.maui. Okay, this Maui project, let's go to manage NuGet packages and we'll see what is the previous version of this community toolkit.maui. So here, if we see, the previous version is 9.1.1. Let's try this one. So I am going to, what was that name? 911. So we are going to use this 9.1.1. So 9.1.1. Then we'll remove this Maui version from here. Or let me comment this. Save it. And let's try to rebuild the solution again. We'll see if it builds or if we are getting some error again. Let it build. And this solution build its success. Let's try the package manager console now. Add migration v hyphen o, and we want the migrations to be in data slash migrations. Let's see. We have API project as startup and API project at default and build succeed. All right. And not all right. We have some problem again. While attempting to activate this was thrown, attempting an instance of this, unable to create a DB context, unable to resolve service of type this DB context options because we have not added it. All right. So before running the migration, let's set it up this data context, register this in our program.cs. Okay. Save everything because right now what happened here is it does not know what provider we are going to use, what database we are going to use. So it cannot uh, generate the migrations because it does not know about the database, whether it is going to be SQLite, SQL Server, or Postgres, or any other database. We have installed the package, but we have not used this SQL Server package, so it does not know about it. So for this, what we can do, this data context only, we can simply say override on configuring. Here we can say options builder dot use SQL Server. Then it would know that we are going to use SQL Server, so it will generate migrations on the basis of SQL Server database, so compatible with SQL Server. But we are not going to use this thing because we'll set it up directly from our main program.cs. Okay, in program.cs, before builder.build, we'll say builder.services.add db context, and here we need to provide our context, which is data context. Now inside this we need to set these options. Here we'll say options, and now this is same as that options. Here we are going to say options dot use SQL Server. Now this use SQL Server, it needs either we can provide setup actions directly or we can provide connection string as a first parameter, then options. So we'll use this connection string parameter. So here we need connection string. We can get it from environment variables or from anywhere. So I'm going to use app settings for this one. In app settings.development.json, I'm going to create connection strings node. Inside this, I'm going to have my connection string. Let's say social connection. This name is up to you. You can name it whatever you want. Now here you need to provide your connection string. Okay, it will be different. It can be different for your system or maybe the same as I am using. So for me, I am using data source, which is going to be the server name. So I have installed SQL Server as a default instance. So for me, dot is the main server, or you can have localhost. So the default instance I'm using dot for this one. Then database name, it will be initial catalog. This is the database name. This name is up to you. You can name it whatever you want. Let's say social Maui. After this, we are going to have username password if you have set up the SQL Server authentication. I am using integrated security Windows authentication. For that, I will have integrated security true. This is for my system, my SQL Server installation. Then I am not going to use connection string encryption for this, so I'll simply say encryption false. And now I am good with my connections. Now I can access this. So the way we can access these connection strings in app settings, we'll say for connection string to string equals, we can say builder dot, we have configuration property here. On configuration, we have get connection strings method. Here we can provide our name. This name will be this name, social connection in this case, social connection. Now I have this connection string. This thing I can use here. And now I'm good. Now you can have other things if you want to set some SQL options for this. You can use this as well, the second option. So SQL option dot whatever you want to set on global level. So command timeout, migration assembly, if you want to change the default migration table name, all these things. To me, I'm okay with just this single thing only. And now because this is a single line, we can directly have, we can get rid of these curly braces. So we can have this in single line. So now we have set it up. Now when it will try to generate the migration, it would know, okay, data for data context, we are using SQL Server. It will generate the migrations compatible with SQL Server. Save everything. Go back to package manager console. Clear everything. And let's run the command again. Add migration, initial migration, -v, -o, data migrations. Let's run it. It succeeded. And it is creating our migrations, and our migrations are. Now we can quickly verify. First, it is going to create table users with these columns with a primary key pk users with id, then push with primary key user id, then bookmarks with columns, these two columns, and constraints, primary key, this composite primary key using these two properties, then two foreign keys with the referential action as listed, cascade, and all these things. And in down, it is simply dropping these tables. So we are good. Now we can try to run these migrations directly from here. I'm going to add the automatic DB migration on the startup that we'll do later. But right now, let's just run the migration directly from here. So here we can say update hyphen database and hyphen v. So using update database right now with add migration, it has simply created these files. So it created a migrations folder, and here we have this migration. Now with update database, it is going to run these migrations against a database using the connection string we have provided. Okay, so it is running all these commands, and there is some error. Error is for comments. Introducing foreign key constraint fk comments, fk comments user id on table comments may cause cycles or multiple cascade paths. So specify on delete no action or on update no action or modify other foreign key constraint. So we need to actually set the cascade actions for the commands as well. So now what we'll do, we'll simply delete this migration from here, or we can simply revert the migration using remove migration, because we are going to change something. So we can remove migration. It will simply remove the existing migration, which was this one migration. Now let's go to our data context, and here the way we have set these things for bookmark and for likes, Same thing we are going to set for comments as well. Okay. Let's do model builder dot entity comment. Okay. And with comment we have dot has one. Comment has one user, c dot user. One user can have many comments, so with many. Here we can say on delete and delete behavior dot restrict. And I guess we also have the same thing for notification, right? So let's do for notification as well. Notification, save it, and we should be good now. Let's generate migrations again. Clear and add migration. It generated the migration. And then let's try to update the database again. Update database. Let's see if this time it works. It is running all these queries against the database. Yeah, done. No error. That means our database is ready now. We have generated our migrations and everything is fine from the database point of view. Now we are good to access the database using this data context. Okay. So now we know what all needs to be done because we already have our UI in place. So we know all the functionality. We need user registration, we need user login, then creation of post, like, save, comments, delete post, all these things, and then notification generation. All these functionalities we need. So we will prepare a data access and business logic related layer, our service layer basically, that we are going to do next. Right? Cool.